What's up, Jake? Thanks for joining me today. Super pumped to talk to you about sales and really follow-ups. For those of the people who don't know who Jake is, Jake runs Scaled. I could talk all day long, but I'd love to hear it from you, Jake. What do you do? Like, what's your take and your experience?
Yeah, I'm happy to, man. I should actually throw it back to you and make you talk all day long. Thank you, man. I'm looking forward to the convo. As you said, I'm Jake Dunlap. I'm the CEO of Scaled. We are a sales consulting company. We are newly opened an office in Austin, so we're going to be neighbors. We have an office in New York and in Austin. And we work with companies that are going through various scaling challenges. So that could be early growth companies that are trying to operationalize sales for the first time. They're doing their first few million in revenue and are trying to figure out how things scale. Much larger organizations that are trying to tweak part of their top of funnel, middle funnel, or current client growth process. Usually all of our consultants are all ex-sales leaders. And so we have about a little over 20 people now between our two offices. So for any CEOs or sales leaders that are, tackling sales challenges, hit me up on LinkedIn or wherever, and I'm happy to talk about sales, marketing.
Awesome. Sweet. Yeah. And I think from our breakfast the other day, I was blown away about how many different types of businesses you work with. And, again, like the intricacies you experience or are exposed to doing sales consulting. So that's kind of what prompted me to talk to you about follow-ups today. So the theme of this video series is going to be all around following up, whether it's a sales prospect, you got somebody on the hook or whatnot. So would love to just start off by asking you, like, okay, so you're doing follow-up for sales. Is that different for different business units, different business models? And if so, like, do you have any examples of the differences?
Yeah, at the highest of high level, it matters the level of person and the size of your company, like how persistent you need to be and how clever you need to be. And so what I mean by that is, look, if you have a transactional sale where maybe it's only, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a year, you can't afford to do too much customized follow-up with people. But as the levels that you want to get in front of, as the deal sizes get longer, sometimes it can take 15, 20, 25, 30 plus touch points. I've seen enterprise organizations. We did an analysis for a company back in 2015. We literally looked at every single SDR interaction over the course of a year. And they had, 30 SDRs. There was zero correlation between conversion to meeting between touch point 4 and touch point 20. So usually what happens is companies in that mid-market, companies just give up too fast. So you got to understand like who you're reaching out to and put together your outreach strategy appropriately. And then understand that most companies just don't go nearly long enough. They give up way too soon.
Interesting. That's very surprising. So in terms of in looking at like the follow-ups, like, how do you be persistent without being annoying? That's my biggest kind of concern is following up too much and pestering somebody.
Yeah, it's because like the typical follow-up is bullshit, like touching base, catching up. Like there's no value. You're not thinking about what's in it for them. What's one new thing I can add? Like this next time, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on Sujan's, I'm going to go on your Instagram. I'm going to see who you follow. And I'm going to say, hey, you know what? You're into wakeboarding. Hey man, like, look, I'm actually going to be out on Lake Travis. Like, love to have you out. People aren't focused on adding enough value in every interaction. And so like when we think about working with companies, it's how does marketing or sales arm the sales team with things that are consistently value, whether it's personalized value, like what I just said, or things that are about very specific segments, things that are about very specific industries or subsegments. So I think that it's about adding value. And if you're adding value, then you are less annoying usually, right? I just don't think the alligator stuff works, or like the spy, are you a spy? Did you get ate by an alligator? Did the house fall? I just don't think that shit works anymore. I think everyone has done it. And it's like, I've seen the data. Some people say it still works, but I'm just seeing a lot of atrophy from that. And like we've got like a really high reply rate, but not a high positive reply rate. People saying, yeah, sorry, I should have followed up, not interested. So it's like, yeah, it's got a high reply rate. So I think most people their follow-up is not value. It's just like, they're just not bringing any value.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's a really important thing, because I think that like alligator or like, oh, you like giraffe escaped the zoo.
Right.
those are all tactics.
Some
That
animal, a hippo sat on you, something happened.
something escaped the zoo and is in your area. You're checking to see if you're alive. Those angles, that was like, first of all, that was like 2014, 15, right? Like that was like,
And it worked because it was novel.
but there's fatigue. So I think what you made a great point of like value, and you talk about personalization, about like stalking a little bit. Like, hey, did you live here? You do this, whatever. I mean, it's called research, right? That's how you close deals. But these tactics, the templates, I always say any template that's out there, been used to death. Like, don't use templates. Use that maybe for guidance of like the framework or like ideas.
Totally.
Yeah. So kind of switching gears. So you talked about the 15,000, like the follow-up for larger contracts, maybe even longer follow-ups. Where does like phone or social kind of play into outreach, follow-up?
Look, I think phone and social are literally the top two most critical, if not, obviously emails in there. I think what we're seeing is you talk to a decision maker at any size company, and then go ahead and ask them, how many emails do you get every day? And they're going to say, I get. How many phone calls do you get? 2. Right? So to me, it's multi-channel. It's like today you need to be doing email because people, that's just like the tool that we're in, or the system that we're in front of most frequently. Mm-hmm. Right? So like email is still a really, really strong tool. But again, you got to be bringing value in those channels. And then, no, I'm a firm believer in the call. There's too much data that supports that campaigns that run with call cadences as a part of it convert at a higher rate. To me, social now. So to me, social isn't like should I do it? You have to. If your audience lives on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, like you have to be engaging them there. Like that is where they are. That's the other place they're spending. Outside of email, they're on LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn has become a beast from a news feed standpoint, right? And I think most people don't know how to do LinkedIn. They do LinkedIn wrong. Here's what: never do this on LinkedIn. Do not connect with me and then immediately send me some bullshit spam like, oh, I saw you. Stop it. Like it's about authentic connection, or like the appearance of authenticity. You connect, you wait like a week, you like a few posts, you make a comment on something, you share it, and then you interact. So I just think that the follow-up process is different. Those to me would be technically considered follow-up activities, right? Like they're later down the stage. But I think just the way that you interact on social is a little bit different. But to me, it's table stakes. Like SDRs that don't know how to build social influence and know how to build in their community, not that you think you're the best SDR, so you're sharing sales tips, but instead you're the best, you know more about human capital management, connected manufacturing. That's where you've got to be the expert. And so if you're adding value, you're sharing content, engaging them with that content 2 or 3 weeks later, like an authentic connection would, that's how you win on the follow-up on social.
Yeah, totally. I think what you said of like connect, engage, and then reach out, right? Like though you have to engage with at least then you're like somebody they semi-recognize, right?
Hopefully. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I get so many of those like connections, and I actually accept every single one of my connections.
I know, dude.
I do it to see what they send me. I run an outreach business, right? So like it's my business to know what happens, and like it's always shit.
It's always a web development. Like I do not need, if you are listening, please, I do not need more connections for web development companies. I have like 1,000, like please stop.
Absolutely. So kind of digging deeper on the follow-up, the message itself, you mentioned earlier about personalization. What level of personalization do you try to do on the follow-up, or just in general?
Yeah. Again, a lot of this is it has to be deal size dependent. You know what I mean? Like larger, mid-market, upper enterprise, everything, man. Everything is personalized, and if it's mid-market, lower mid-market, it's pretty interesting. SalesLoft and other companies have put out data. Is that all right to say SalesLoft? You can edit this out.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, an interesting data point that I saw was that I think it's like 17-20% personalization gets 2x results, right? So what the data actually says is like, you don't have to go crazy. It just needs to be this much personalized. And I'll tell you that the cheat codes for personalization that we've seen work is relevant micro industry, not finance, like hedge fund, like you get relevant with their industry, relevant job title, location. Nobody uses people don't use location enough in their cadences, right? They don't say, I'm working with other industrial manufacturing organizations in the airplane supply in the Pacific Northwest. And we know that they face this specific problem because it's different than what the people face in the South. So those are kind of like some of the cheats that we use. And then relevant competitors would be the fourth. That making sure you have a bank of relevant sub-industry competitors of similar sizes, right? When you personalize, don't say you work with Pepsi or Facebook. The only people that care are Coke or maybe Google, right? Like,
Yeah.
So people want to see themselves in the mirror. So in personalization, I'm always trying to show a mirror up to someone. I get you. I know what your space is like. I know what you're going through. I know people like you. We should hang out, right? And I think personalization, you should always have that lens of like, is this about them? Does this show that I get you and what you're going through? Or is this about me and me like pitching you? So I think personalization has got to be appropriate, but the data says you don't need to do a lot of personalization. Again, we try to key in on one of those four things. And I can tell you like our data shows this. What converts at the absolute highest amount is if I have any proprietary data about you. If about your company, I know that if I have a website or a marketplace, I've had 30,000 searches for your company this month, or blah, blah, blah. Anything you have that's data about companies, we found that destroys better than anything. If you know something about my company, and then the second is my competitive set, you have proprietary data about my competitors or competitive set. If you can marry those two, that's a home run for personalization. So if you can get, to me, it's actually, we've seen, actually, if you have personalized data about them or their micro competitor set, that's what performs at some of the highest.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the whole mirror concept as well, right? People want to see themselves in the mirror. So if you can talk about the mirror, then they're going to look into that, right?
Yeah.
As they're reading your email. That's interesting. So like, maybe, is this a right example here? If I just kind of take into action what you've said, let's say I'm selling to real estate agents in Miami, and you have personalization and localization, that they're in Miami, you're in Miami. It's specific to that, but you have like knowledge about the space, saying like, people who do videos and use drones for videos sell homes twice as fast or higher price homes or whatever. So you can include that information as a way for to get. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then to take it to the next step, what I would say is, look, and I know because Miami is such a hot market, everyone's got great pictures, right? And it's a lot different than, I don't know the Miami neighborhoods that well, but I would call out that I know that the way that you sell a home in Miami is different from neighborhood to neighborhood. That really shows I know what it means to be a realtor in Miami. So you got to take it to that next step. What do those people do? What do they care about? What are their pain points? And if you as a sales development rep or a salesperson, you don't know that in real estate, then it's all about the neighborhood. It's all about the school district, right? And how you tie that back to the drone pictures, that's what shows you're an expert, right?
Gotcha.
I know Miami Realty. I know that it's different in working this. I know that you guys are based in this neighborhood. I know that's a lot different than this neighborhood.
Got it. Yeah.
You show, like, I get you. I know you. I know what your world's like.
Right. And so here's, like backing out of that example. So you're selling to realtors in Miami. It's not that freaking hard to find all that information you just said on Google, on Zillow, like reading a freaking magazine, right? Going and talking to another real estate agent, talking to one.
Yep.
Not that hard. So I think it's
Not
like,
at all.
I think, the point I'm trying to make here is that, like, do your homework on your prospects and the industry before you do any outreach or any of that stuff. Because you said 2x on 17% personalization, significantly higher on, I'm just rattling these facts because I think this is really important. Like, you have to take this home, is significantly higher on any localization, personalization. What was the other part? I think,
if you have, the other part was if you have data on them. If you have any data that you can aggregate, even if it means you go out and you use like a Survata or a SurveyMonkey and you go and do your own proprietary research to understand, this micro thing about real estate in Miami. I could go and do a survey to 250 people in your neighborhood in Miami, and I could find out how, this, and this. That, you know how much it costs? $1,000. I can go run that stuff on Servata. I can literally go run a survey like that for $1,000, $2,000 bucks. And I can go use that for everybody in Miami. And again, it's about, if you can ever get proprietary data about your prospect or their world, they're going to want to engage, because they want, that's real value. That's thought. That's the definition of thought leadership. It is, I understand where this market is going. I get you in your world. Here's these things that are happening. Here's what I know about you as a part of that world. Let's have a conversation. Maybe I can add some value.
Awesome. I love it. So one last question for you, and I'll let you go. What's your take, and this might be a very, very basic question, but what's your take on like the length of follow-ups? Like I found, people are sending these long, drastic, super short one-liners. What is there a recommendation there? Or is it going to?
I like to talk about things that we have like facts around, as opposed to like purely opinions. I don't know. I don't know what the effect of 4 sentences versus 8 is. I think like, look, the general rule is like, shorter is better. I think, you don't want to make it too long. It's like, is it mobile friendly? That's the lens that I look at it through. So if it's not more than, it can't be more than 3 or 4 scrolls on a mobile. So I think you got to try to mix it up too. You don't want them to get every email I get from you as a novel. So there's little small things that you could do, right? Like there's a guy who used a technique here in New York, I know, that worked really well. He would do what was called like a double tap. What he would do is they'd send all their emails out between like 4 to 6 at night. And then the next morning he'd be like, oh, and I forgot to send this other thing. And it was really short. And it was just like a link to whatever. Like, I sent this email as a really tight email, but and the sentence was complete. He's like, oh, I didn't send the attachment. And dude, their reply rate skyrocketed because it felt like a real person. So I think I guess the point to that around like, what's the right length? Like, I think you want to mix it up. Shorter is better. But that give value, as long as you have enough time to give some value. You know what I mean? We also, one thing I will add, we don't use a lot of hyperlinks, almost never use attachments. I'm a big fan of video. We haven't really talked about video. I think video is a great way to cut through the noise. But again, be audience appropriate with your video. I'll tell you something that's real annoying. You go like this, you're holding up a whiteboard. Hi, John Smith. You're the COO of Apple. I'm Rick. I froze. All right, so come back. It had to have been like the best way. So the point I was making is that, like, look, I'll tell you what I hate about video is whenever people hold up a sign, it's like, and they're trying to reach out to a VP of marketing at like a Fortune 500. Hi, it's me. Hi, Susan. It says Susan. It's me, Jake Dunlap. I'm with blah, blah, blah. Dude, that's not Susan's peer. That's not showing a mirror to Susan. Like, you're just showing that you're you're showing you're not me. Because Susan is not doing it. Susan's not holding up a whiteboard with her name on it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, when you use video, if I'm trying to reach out to Susan, I might be in front of, let's say Susan's in marketing, I might be in front of the Digitas office, right? I'm in New York. I'm on Madison Avenue. I get digital agencies, and like, you know what I mean? Like, use video that's appropriate to the person. Mm-hmm. Not all video should be first name, first name on a whiteboard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Because I think the other part of this is, like, you're selling to SMBs. Trust is always a big issue. And if you do this, like video of you walking down the street, like more of like a Snapchat-esque video, Facebook Live, that actually shows the exact opposite, right? So professional stuff works really well for them, but too professional, just be like, oh, that doesn't look at all personal. So I mean, that's super the key.
I think you can do this now. I think people care less and less about quality, man. I think if you look at the data, it shows that, like, doing some overly produced, you're right, there's like a certain level. But again, let's go to your real estate analogy. Now I take a video, I'm on the street, I'm in front of one of your houses. I've got here. Look, I was walking by. I know I had reached out 3 or 4 times. Look, I went and saw the outside of 3 of your houses. Here's me in front of this house, this house, this house. I want to get to, like, here's the value I can add. Like, let's set up time. Like, that's a good use of video.
Absolutely. I love that. And what you describe is just putting in the work, right? You grind it. It works though. But dude, thank you so much for your time. This has been very awesome. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so on Twitter, Jake T. Dunlap, and then LinkedIn is just Jake Dunlap. So hit me up, obviously scaled.com, SKALED.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter. Yeah, and you're going to see a lot from us. I mean, we've really amped up our social game as well. So we're going to be putting out a lot of content coming up here in July.
Awesome, man. Look forward to it.
Cool.
Thanks again.